McGrath, which is really exciting to be presenting today. Her business is Restore Balance and Harmony, and we're going to discover all about spiritual well-being. Over to you, Maria, and welcome.
Thank you, Viv. Thanks for everyone who is live, and for those that are going to join us at some time in the future by watching the recording. So I want to share my screen. I have a number of slides. I probably have too many slides because I have so much information I want to share with you all, but I will just really just hit on the key points that I believe that we need. So we'll just go here to my and do that so that we are up and running. I will just push that down a little bit. Okay, so so here I am today with the spiritual wellbeing class. I wanted to get you to have a little bit of understanding about me. Can you see my screen, or are all those controls up the top in the road?
No, we're not seeing the controls. We're seeing the whole lot's looking really fabulous, all about you.
Perfect. So I guess I just wanted to share a little bit about me. I am a small town country girl. I live in central west New South Wales, a town of around 4,000 people. I was brought up on a farm. I had a great childhood, a great life. I had wonderful parents. We had fresh air and blue sky and sunshine and all the things that make for a fantastic childhood. And growing up into adulthood. But for some reason, I struggled to feel like I was good enough, that I was worthy, that I was happy for such a long time. And back then, as you can see, I'm 49, I know I don't look at, but depression wasn't talked about back then. Depression and mental health, emotional health, all of that wasn't talked about, but it was something that I felt. And looking back, I can see that it come in around 13, 14 years old, and I struggled with it for most of my life. I managed to release all of it when I turned 40, but we'll get to that along the way. And I struggled. Every decade got harder and harder. The noise and the pain and the emotions got stronger and stronger as each decade went, and that created an isolation in me that stopped me from having any kind of spiritual wellness, any kind of emotional, mental wellness as well, until I was able to find something that worked to heal the pain and the noise, to find that spiritual wellness. And now I work to help women to find that as well, to find a peace, a peace in your spirit, to know there's a peace in your mind, a peace in your heart, so that you live your best life. You're living with full self-love and self-worth. You don't have the pains of the past to stop you from really feeling all of yourself. So I work to help women come home to themselves, to reconnect. And I've probably gone, ahead with the slide. So this was me. I've just got a couple of photos here. The April 2014 was sort of an example of the pain that you could see on my face before I released it. And 7 days later, there's a photo that just shows a completely different me. I've gone on to help women in many different ways. I have been on the front cover of a couple of magazines, women's empowerment magazines. I was a writer, a monthly contributing writer for one of those magazines for over 2 years, the Sabella Publications there, and I've also been a co-author in a couple of books. So my purpose is being part of the mission to set 10 million women's hearts free. So when I decided to do the spiritual well-being class, I Googled what the word spiritual meant, and it relating to or affecting the human spirit, soul. And for me, that is that living connected to ourselves, having the peace, having the full emotional and mental well-being, you know, because if your heart hurts, if your mind hurts, if your soul hurts, then you do not have the spiritual well-being that we talked to, that connection with our source, that deep peace, that deep worthiness, knowing that you're good enough and just being who we are. And I know now from the journey that I've been in that there is a place deep within us where we can sit in that peace. There is a knowing, and there's also endless wisdom when we are able to tap into ourselves. And that is what I want to share with you today. And I think the biggest part of knowing and connecting and getting back to our spirit, our source, is understanding our female being, our female factor, our female differences, because right now I think we're working against the flow of who we truly are, and that blocks our ability to really be connected to our source, to have that spiritual well-being. So I guess basically I just wanted to create something that everybody could understand and show you that, you know, our female differences are sort of like the differences between the iPhone and the Samsung, okay? To be really simply put, they can both do the same things. You know, they can do calls and texts, they can take photos and videos, you can get on the internet and do a million different things. However, they were both created differently with a different hardware. And that hardware enables certain apps to work with that hardware. You know, you cannot download the iTunes onto a Samsung. They're not compatible. And I think it is really, really important for women to know, and I hope that you get some ahas through this masterclass, that we require different apps, we require different education, we require different tools, different methods, different processes, different therapies even, to heal all that pain and that noise that is stopping us from being really connected to ourselves, to being fully healed, fully happy and joyful and at peace, and all the things that we want. You know, everyone wants peace, they want happiness, they want to be loved. And it's just all the noise and all the beliefs, and then there's inherited stuff that blocks us from having that. So that's where I want to go today, to talk about our gender differences, okay? And now the Institute of Women International, who I have trained through, they have created a pink print. Instead of there being a blueprint, which, you know, we talk about all the time, they've created a pink print. It's female specific. And there are many, many different differences in the brain, the hormones, with our intuition, in our history and biology. And I'm just going to touch on a few in all of them today. So when I talk about being a female, I'm talking about anyone who was born with a uterus, okay? When you are born with a uterus, every single one of our 70 to 100 trillion cells is coded female. So it doesn't matter if we have a hysterectomy later in life or whether there are glitches in the system, whether things don't quite work properly. If you have that uterus, you have all the cells are working with an unconscious that is created for the creation of life, basically. So our female unconscious is the creator of life engine room. That is we have a separate unconscious that men don't have, that helps a woman to create a life without actually having to stop and sit and think about it. If any of you have had children, you will know that when you were pregnant, you did not have to stop and say, okay, everybody leave me alone, be quiet. I need all of my peace, I need all of my mind, I need all of my energy, because today I'm creating the spinal column. Today I'm creating the heart. Today I'm doing the arms and the legs. Okay, our unconscious mind runs that programming without us having to think about it. It also runs our 28-day, 29, whatever it is for you, that cycle that we have for our entire, adulthood, but we have hormones being released from the moment that we're born. So we have this unconscious that works our system, and men do not know that program. They do not have to have that program. They don't have that program because they don't need it. They have their own program. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. We are just both very, very different, and that's just fact, which is sort of what I want to bring in. I want to, go into how that affects how we live and work, and how that affects our mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. So, okay, so here is just a tiny snapshot of the different ways that we're different. And I'm going to go into a couple of them in a little bit more detail. So hormones. We are born with a regular monthly cycle that lasts approximately 28 days. A lot of people think that our hormones don't come into play until we get to that puberty where we get our first period. Scientists have proven that there are hormones being released in females at the age of 6 months that are not in little baby boys. Okay, so we have, I don't know if you can see me, we have this fluctuating, and it's just very, very small and very unnoticeable, but it's there from the moment that we're born, and it just gets bigger and bigger until it's this craziness when we hit puberty. Boys have just a moment in time, basically, where they get their shot of hormones, and it goes up and down, and then they're flatlined for pretty much most of their life. They don't understand the tide that is. We're like the ocean. It's always fluctuating. There's high tides and low tides, and big waves and calmness. We are always fluctuating, and it has an effect on every part of our being, on our concentration, on our memory, on our creativity, on the way that our brain works. Our intuition, we're more in tune with intuition. We have something that males do not have. And we have this radar that is trying to keep us safe. However, for most of us, we have so much noise, so much fears and hurts and past stuff that we're not really listening to our intuition anymore. Our biology, and that is, talking about that unconscious, that creator being, that cycle that we have. Our body is different to how males are. Our brain, now there's like 5, 6, 7, 8 different things listed there, and I will talk about a couple of them because I've got them listed on another slide, so we can just talk about them and I can give you some examples. And the same with the history, which is epigenetics. And I don't know if anybody knows the science, but science has proven that we inherit at least 14 generations of bloodline trauma and emotion and beliefs. So I'll go into that a bit more too. So your female mind, which really is the thing that is stopping us from connecting and being happy and being at peace and having that spiritual wellness, because right now we have so much belief, so much noise, so much stuff running around. We're all so busy that I think that's the thing that we need to work on, to clear out some of that noise, to understand our mind better so that we can get back in touch with our source and be who we want to be, to find that peace. So some of the differences, the larger limbic system is the emotional center in the brain, okay? Because it's larger, we have more connection to emotion than men. And we have 8 times more crying hormone, which connected to that larger emotional center is the reason why we are always so emotional. Men don't have it. They don't understand. Why are you crying? Why has that upset you? Why do you care what, that girl over there said? I love you. I think you look amazing. This is what men will say because they don't understand, because they don't have the same thing. Has anyone ever said that to you? You can get that. I can see, Viv, you've got a bit of a laugh there. That you know, we attach emotion to everything. And men don't quite understand that. They want to help us and they want to support us, and they say, okay, well, you know what, I'll go tell her to bugger off. And you say, no, I just want to have a cry about it and I'll be right, you know. And they just don't get it. So it plays a huge part in how we function. And at the same time, we sort of think that we're a little bit crazy if our emotions are out of control. And we quite often get told by the male species that we're crazy or we're out of control or get a handle on your emotions. So we think that we're broken. We think that there's something wrong with us when we don't understand that this is something that is uniquely female. And even if you can't see that happening in other females, it actually really is. Okay. Your prefrontal cortex, and these are just a couple that I pulled out because I think they make, you know, sense for women to understand, get an aha as to how they, okay, well, I'm not crazy, I'm not different, I'm not broken. So our prefrontal cortex develops at a younger age than men, and we take fewer risks. You don't see as many, you can see some, but you don't see as many girls jumping out of trees as you do boys. You don't see, you know, them going crazy on motorbikes as you do with boys. Okay, it is just how we are programmed. It's part of our hardware, and we get to the place of feeling fear a lot faster than what boys do. And that's why we tend to hold back a lot more in every area of our life, including in business, where men don't have that fear. And I'll just say, you know what, I'm putting my hand up, I'm going to the boss, I'm going to tell him I need that lost my words, that job, I need to, you know, get more money, or I need, you know, where women are, they're more fearful, they hold back. And when I am generalizing, there is always an exception, you know, it's sort of, you know, 6 out of 7 men when I'm talking about men, and 9 out of 10, 8, 9 out of 10 women. So there are always 1 or 2 that go a little bit more, they don't fit in the box, so to speak. And for women, anxiety and fear can get out of hand a lot quicker because we have that connection to emotion. We're not seeing it logically as the male brain does. The more white matter, we're a multitasker, you know that we can do that, and males don't do that. We can do 100 different things at any given time. And this sort of gives us a bit of a snapshot of the female mind, where everything is connected, okay? We think about, even if we're at work, we're still thinking about what we're going to cook for dinner. We're still thinking about the kids, who's going to pick them up from school. We're still thinking about our mum who's sick. We're thinking about 100 different things, the dishes that were left in the sink, lots of irrational stuff, but you know, can't say just forget it, put it in a box and leave it. It's not how our brain works. Where a man he can put things in boxes. And there's a Tale of Two Brains is an awesome video of a guy, Mark Ganger. If you want a male perspective, he's talking about these boxes. It's very, very funny. But a man can go to work and think of work and nothing else. He can go home and put on the TV and sit there with the remote control just flicking it, because he's thinking of nothing. Where women quite often say to him, what are you thinking about? And he'll say nothing. Well, you've got to be thinking about something, because our brain doesn't understand that there's such a thing as thinking about nothing, because we don't get to have that. And we, as well as thinking about all of those different events and people and places and stuff we've got to do, we've got all of those emotions running around in our brain that we don't get any peace from. You know, there's stress, and there's worried, and there's disappointment, and there's frustrated, and there's conflict, there's guilt. Guilt is a hugely female thing. I'm not saying men don't feel it, but women feel it a lot more. It's somehow tied into, you know, we have this baby that we're connected to, we're bonded to. It's our job to nurture. That is what we were put on the planet to do. That is what all our hardware is wired to do. So we have to do that. And if we're not doing it, then we've got that guilt. We spend more time overthinking, worrying, questioning, ruminating. Does anybody feel, get that? Yeah. So I've put in here a massive big colour wheel. This is like our emotions. If you didn't get from the last, this is what our emotions look like. There are 100 different variations for any one specific thing. We have more language, that, you know, that 8 times more crying hormone, that, you know, more connection to the emotional center, bigger limbic system. If you go to Bunnings paint wall and you say to a man, you know, what colour blue do you want? He'll just say blue. You know, he'll pick a blue. Blue's blue. And for women, it's no, there's navy blue. We actually see more shades of colour than men do too, believe it or not. You know, we have the navy blue and the dark blue and the royal blue and the light blue and the aqua, and, you know, and it's the same for our emotions. You know, for anger, it could be rage, it could be mad, it could be I'm fuming. We have so much more different language for how we express and how we feel. Men, it's just I'm angry. And you know, they struggle to find more than that. If you have ever tried to have a conversation, with an in-depth emotional conversation with a male, they talk a lot less. They say a lot less words, emotions, because they don't process it. They're not getting it the same way, where, like I said, we have 100 different ways of saying mad or angry, where they just have one, generally speaking. Now, I think this is a really, really important thing that we need to know as women. I think everyone would have heard the saying, the eyes are the windows to the soul. Now, men and women's eyes are very different. We have different retina cells. Now, I didn't know this until I started this personal development journey, this journey for helping women with their emotional wellness. We have more what they call P ganglion cells, and men have more M ganglion cells. So to break it down, we notice more finer detail. We notice when the corners of the mouth on our mum, say, if we're a baby, we notice, any kind of woman, we notice the smile go up, we notice it go down, we notice the frown, the frown, we notice the brows, we notice when a woman flares her nose, for example. I had a friend who I could tell from 50 metres away that she was in a bad mood. Her boyfriend could never see that. He would always poke the bear. Because men do not see that finer detail. They see motion, they see movement. That's why they're better drivers. They can move in and out of traffic. You know, you see them on a motorbike and they're swerving, they're in and out. They get the distance. They see the spatial difference better than what we as females do. So we both have different purposes. But we and I think this is really important for women to know, because when we pretend we're okay, when we put a mask on and pretend that we're okay, our children, little baby boys or any age boys, they will just see mum smile and yeah, good, off they go. But our daughters can see that the brows are furrowed or the eyes are sad. The noses, they know, they may not understand why or what the emotion behind it, but they know mum's not okay. You can't put it past little girls. They see. So when you're deep dad struggling with depression or anxiety, stress and worry, frustration, but you put a mask on because you don't want the kids to know. It works for boys, but it won't work for girls. They will sense, they will feel, and they can see that you're not okay. And that does affect them, and it will eventually play out in how they start living their life. So I think it's really important for us as women to know that. And we perceive the world. We see the world differently. We perceive the world differently. And we make it all about us. We're inferential perceptors. What that means, again, I'll give you an example. If you were to go to work, you see the boss come in and he's looking really cranky. Now, we've noticed that because we have these ganglion cells and we see the finer details. Most of the guys in the office didn't even notice. But if they did, they think, oh, well, you know, he could have a fight with the wife. Who cares? It's not my issue. Don't care. As women, we think, because we're this inferential, we take it in and we take it personally. Oh my God, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? Did he not like my report? Did he notice that I was 5 minutes late? We make it about us and we sit there and we start to stress and worry. And all that happened was that he had a flat tire, but we don't stop worrying until we know why he's got the cranky face on. We make it about us. So again, that is, you know, the 8 or 9 women out of 10, there are always those that don't quite get to that. But if we ask our partner to do the dishes and he says, no, or I just don't have time now, or I'll do it later, but I want it to be done now, we think, we make it about us. Well, he doesn't love us. He doesn't appreciate us. He doesn't realise how much work I put in or how it makes me feel to get up to a dirty sink in the morning. And he just thinks it's the dishes or, you know, putting the garbage out or whatever. They don't process information in the same way that we do. And all of these differences are weird. We are causing ourselves stress and worry, and that in turn causes all the toxic hormones to be released. But I think to understand how we function can stop us. If we're aware of what we do, then we can change how we do it. We can say, oh, stop, this is, you know, a program running. I get a choice to worry about this or not. Him not wanting to do the dishes has nothing to do with me. It's just him not wanting to do the dishes. It doesn't mean he doesn't love me. So when we're in that state of stress, we're releasing toxic chemicals, toxic hormones into our system, and our body deals with that differently than what the males do. Our brain stresses more than men do. They have, and this is again a reference to that video, The Tale of Two Brains, where you can get a male perspective. So I'm not just talking crazy stuff. Men have a nothing boss. They have the ability to reduce stress that women don't have. They can sit there and point the remote and be thinking about nothing. That's their stress relief. Women don't have it because we've always got that constant noise going on in our head. We're always thinking and everything's connected and all that emotion and everything else is going on. Men are also in peripheral. Now, women can teach themselves, but it's not a natural way to be. We're really focused and we're always thinking and we're always moving and going and you know, the eyes are always forward. I had my sister-in-law who, when she was driving a car, she would concentrate on the white line in front of her and just drive and not see another car even coming. So wonder she didn't have a car accident. Where men, you know, they see everything off in all areas. Now, I grew up in the country. I drove roads where there were kangaroos jumping out all the time. So my peripheral grew. I was always training and expanding that so that I could see out to the sides. So there is ways that we can reduce that stress, but we need to know that how we do and how we focus and what that difference is to be able to create ways to reduce that stress. And putting ourselves out in peripheral is definitely a way to reduce stress. Now, when we are stressing all the time, and in that fight flight mode, all those chemicals that are being released are doing harm to the body. And we are using up all our happy hormones, all the oxytocin, to water down the toxic chemicals in our body. And this is why there are so many women who feel unhappy, because we're literally using up our happy hormone. We're also, when a lot of women these days are struggling with the baby blues, it's because that oxytocin, that is that shot of bonding hormone, that when the baby comes, it's all been used to be watering down the stress as well. And that's why some women have the baby blues. It's literally because they've used up all of their bonding hormone. We have a generator. This is another purpose of the unconscious mind, a generator that works to produce that bonding hormone, that oxytocin. However, it is being depleted to try and stop us poisoning our system through the stress hormone. So we really need solutions to that stress to live our best life, to be happy, for a start. Okay, so we've got 25% more head-heart connection, which can be a great thing, but it can also be a bad thing when we relive stressful or hurtful events all the time. We remember events, and if you had, I've just gone a slide too far. If you have a fight with a partner or a friend and they say something that relates to an event that happened 1 year, 2 years, 5 years ago, your memory brings that back in, and you're bringing up this event that happened, forever in the past. And men will say, aren't you ever going to forget that? Because they don't have that connection. We remember, we store, and we bring it in when we have that emotional connection to the emotion that is connected to different events. We bring it back out of the past and bring it into the future. Someone said, 10 years ago that, whatever, you're not good enough, you're a big fat rah, rah, rah. If someone said that again, you're bringing back in that same memory, that same emotion that you felt. It never actually leaves us. It's there and it's stored. So we're burning out our brain. We're doing it hard. So the other thing that I think is really, really important that women need to know is that the science of epigenetics, which we're connected to our previous generations. Now, epigenetics is the science behind this inherited bloodline trauma, emotions, beliefs. It has proven that we inherit up to 14 generations of past bloodline trauma, the emotions, the feelings, the beliefs, the patterns and cycles that we can sometimes see playing out. Now, this image here, I guess it sort of helps you to understand how this can work. Now, when your grandmother was pregnant with your mother had the embryo that will be you inside of her. So there are 3 generations within, all connected. So everything that grandmother and mother felt, everything that they went through, everything that they felt, all the beliefs, the trauma, the emotions, they're stored in the DNA. And then it sits there in the DNA. It can be a part of our life from the moment that we're born. We can just feel fear, or we have these things that are running out, or they can be triggered at moments throughout our life by other certain events. But if you think about, say it's me, my grandmother, she was also connected to her mother and her grandmother. So that's, 6 generations that we've got. You can see that we, as the incubator that grow the human inside of us, we connected more. We inherit more of that bloodline trauma that is stored in the DNA because we connected in that way. So 14 generations is around 200 years. So if you could imagine, you know, what's happened in the last 200 years for women, you know, were there wars, were there famines, were there other pandemics, you know, were women bought and sold as slaves, were they, you know, had sexual assault and all sorts of different things. But also, as we would like to think that science will eventually prove more. What if it was 500 years? What if it was 1,000 years that we've inherited? What would that, women have been suppressed for a long, long time. We are just in the last 70 years starting to rise up, where we've been able to work, where we've been able to vote, where we've been able to do all of the things that we now do and we take for granted. For a long time, they were not available to us as women. Women for a time, and it was around 500 to 700 years ago, in the 1500s, I think, women were, if they were to use natural remedies, as we do so often now, all holistic and organic herbs and things to heal their body, their mind and their soul, they were deemed to be witches and they were burnt at the stake. Does that ring a bell for anyone? Have you heard Joan of Arc, for example, was one of the better known ones that was burnt at the stake? Now, I just want to bring this up because as women in business, we are pushing our boundaries, we're pushing our comfort zone all the time. And we do come up with this fear of being seen, fear of being heard, fear of judgment, fear of stepping up. There's a lot of deep layers of inherited trauma, and these fears that are in our DNA, you know, it was a fear of death. Okay, that's what's there. And right now we've been told, you know, push through it, put on your big girl pants, feel the fear and do it anyway. And these are the reasons why we're pushing ourselves, running against our own system and causing all that stress hormone, causing ourselves pain and struggle and suffering, because we're not understanding and not working to heal all of these deep, lifelong DNA inherited trauma. So there was, and I think a lot of people can think that it's, you know, crazy talking about these women back in history, but there was 9 million women who were killed in a 300-year period. So it wasn't just something, an odd one here and there. It was a lot. And there were women, there was a time where women, every woman in a town was taken into the town square once a month and they were put on scales and they were weighed. And if they weighed less, yes, that's right, if they were too skinny, they were deemed to be using natural herbs and remedies, and therefore they were a witch, and therefore they also were burnt at the stake. So a lot of the time we use food, we put on weight as a protection mechanism. And for a lot of women, it doesn't make any sense at all why they start eating or why they're binging or why they're doing so many different emotional things around food and eating, but it could be something that is deeply inherited, sitting in our DNA, that is causing trauma, struggle, stress. And these are the reasons why we do not, a lot of us don't have that spiritual well-being. We don't have emotional and mental well-being. We're fighting ourselves all the time. We're putting a smile on our face. We're putting a mask on. We're pretending we're okay. And we just keep layering and layering and layering on top of what's already there. We don't realise that we were born into this world with already so much stuff. You know, if you want an analogy, you could say, you know, we're carrying a backpack with, you know, 1 kilo rocks in it. We've already got 1 million, and then we start adding all the ones from this lifetime, and we've got to wonder which rock is going to be the one that breaks our back, that causes us to fall over. And so that's why I work so specifically with women, to help them clear this stuff out at that DNA level to release this. It's like pressing factory reset on the computer, if you want an analogy. You're clearing out all the glitches, all the viruses, all the stuff that was not originally intended to be a part of your pink print, your original design. So here I've just got a little bit more about epigenetics, which I sort of addressed in that last slide. And epigenetics has been around since the 1970s. This science has been studied since then. It's not a new science, but over the last 5 years, it has really come to the forefront. And if you were to Google epigenetics, there would be a million different studies and videos and papers that you could read. So the tool that I work with, which is female specific, is Creatrix, and it's based on the science of epigenetics. It works to release that inherited stuff. So women can literally press the factory reset, clear out the past to start fresh. And when you have grief or anger or sadness, when there's nothing else under it, there's no layers, it is so much easier to deal with. Life is still going to happen. You know, we are still going to go through life today and tomorrow, and it's still going to throw curveballs at us. But when we don't have the 1,000,000 ton of rock on our back, we're just putting one rock on, we can deal with it, you know. So I've got a list here of common issues that women in business have, but women of all sorts have. All women, I guess. And I want you to just take a look at it and see what resonates with you. What do you feel? What do you see, or what do you recognize as something that you know is playing out in your mind, in your heart, in your soul? Because we're a one entire being. Everything that affects our mind affects the rest of us. Everything that affects our body affects the rest of us. Our soul is a reflection of everything else that's going on. So fear of failing, fear of success, fear of judgment is massive for women. Fear of being seen. We talked about that as something that could be, you know, 500 years, 1,000 years, you know, in our DNA. A lot of the time we feel like we're not heard. We feel like we're not appreciated, you know, with that difference between how the male brain works and the female brain. Men don't need to be told all the time that they are accepted, that they are good, that they're pretty, that they're beautiful, that we love them. They don't need that constant appreciation. They don't need, where women, we won't say so, but we need that to know that we're appreciated. I've gone up too far again. So I just put in a little exercise here that I wanted to share with you as a way to start creating an awareness of what it is that could be going on in your head and heart and gut, to help you see what it is so that you can start working towards getting rid of it. Now, I know there are so many tools and processes and therapies out there. A lot of them are conscious learning. So it's something that it's coming from the outside, and we're trying to push information in, and it doesn't quite, well, it won't clear stuff at that DNA level that we've just talked about. And a lot of it's male brain, so it doesn't quite connect. We don't make sense of it. We continue to do like affirmations. We do them every day. I'm good enough, I'm good enough, I'm good enough, I'm good enough. But yet we have this noise in the back of the head saying, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not. This is why we need those deeper and female specific tools. But one of the things that you can do to start gaining awareness is to, and I know a lot of women journal, but when you journal, when you write down, you know, putting pen to paper, when your conscious and subconscious mind sees that writing down on black and white on paper, it sees it more than when it's just running around in our head. We're not taking notice of really what's going on. But when you get it down on pen and paper, a lot of the time we just write and then we go away and we leave it. But if you were to go back and highlight particular negative words, and if you want a copy of those, then I can, I've got my email here later, I can email you through a PDF. But things like I can't, have to, should, they're all negative connotations where if you go back and you replace them with positive words, you can change the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you see particular situations. When you say, oh, I should go visit my mother, it's I should go see my mother. You know, it's a negative. Where you say, today I'm going to go see my mum, it's a different way. Your brain processes it different. You feel differently about it straight away. Today I get to go see my mum. You know, you've framed it in a different way. I just can't handle today. I can handle today. I can handle anything that comes my way. Changing simple words from negative to positive can shift how you, and if you do this first thing in the morning and completely shift, you know, you leave the house feeling in a more positive way than if you just go as you are, for one, or write down and then don't even read it and you leave. The journaling, it gets it out, but you haven't gone back, you haven't read it, you haven't analysed what's going on, and you haven't shifted that negative to positive, which can be a really helpful tool. Another simple way to gain awareness is to stop through the day, especially if you get triggered. And by that I mean if something happens and it causes you to feel anger, or it causes you to feel sadness, or it causes you to lose your shit. In that moment, just stop and write. What are you doing? What are you doing in that moment? What are you thinking about in that moment? Write exactly what it is. And what are you feeling in that moment? Now, that is a really simple thing to do. And I've been doing it with clients for a long time. And it generally takes a week or two for your subconscious to say, you know what, I'm really actually going to own what I'm thinking, feeling, and allow you to write down in full. So the first couple of days, you know, you might just write 2 lines and you're not really deep diving into what it is that you're thinking and feeling. But the more that you do it, the more that your subconscious feels safe to do it, to allow yourself to own what it is that you're feeling. And then you gain awareness of what's real. Oh my goodness, every time I see that person, I get triggered to feel that thing. Where when we're just running on autopilot, we don't realise that that is the thing that's happening over and over and over. This brings awareness. And it's just such a simple little thing to do, but it creates a lot of awareness. But warning, if you do not want, if you're happy in your comfort zone and you don't want to have change, you don't want to know this, what's going on, you don't want to be feeling, because this will bring up an awareness. Your subconscious will start owning, and then you will start to realise what those feelings are. And if you're not prepared to then do something about it, you might find yourself feeling a little bit less happier than what you are right now, in your comfort zone. But they are a couple of really good helpful tools. Now, I just wanted to show you some photos of women, and this is showing that your body is feeling your emotion as much as your mind and your heart and your soul is. Okay, I know a couple of women who've went away in COVID. They've had money to spend, so they've went and got a facelift and a tummy tuck. They've spent money on outside things to try and make them feel better on the inside. We're healing that deep emotional pain from this lifetime and from the past bloodline inherited stuff. It's like having Botox anyway. You can't lie. These are women who've had this creatrix transformation. They've cleared out generations of stuff, of pain, of trauma, of hurt, of betrayal, of sadness, of loss, of grief. I could go on for You know, some women have 30, 40 issues. I've had this woman up the top, the blonde one right up the top. She had 160, and she is a trained counsellor. She is a licensed practitioner, counsellor, and she had stopped working with other women, other people, because she could no longer get past her own stuff. And she'd had childhood trauma and all kinds of things. And we had literally 3 sessions, 3 weeks, and she went from before the June to after Creatrix, that transformation. So that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like, to feel the clearing of the inherited emotional trauma and pain that we are. No matter, when none of us have come out of it, ladies, we have all inherited something. When we're born, if we're carrying that pile of rocks our entire life, we're just used to it. We add one here and we add one there, and we sort of get used to it. If there's 20 piled in at the one time, we think, oh, okay, we can feel that, but we get used to this less than happy place that we are. Yeah, there are a lot. Sorry, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of people who are happy, but there are inherited stuff in all of us. Just some have it, a lot heavier than others, I guess. So this is just a few that I just wanted to show you, transformation at that deep DNA level. So Creatrix is the new psychology for women. It's resolving deep conditioning and blocks, beliefs that are holding women stuck. You can be free. And I know a lot of women have tried a lot of things, and when they don't work, when nothing changes, they feel like, I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. And I felt that too, because I had done a lot of different things. I had done psychology, I had done counseling, I had done energy healing, kinesiology and Reiki. I had done, and they all help a little bit. And I guess they all get us ready for this big transition when we're ready to clear the slate, basically. So today, I don't know whether, the others usually do this, but I've gone too far. I'm offering some free confidential deep dive analysis if women want to uncover the blocks and beliefs that are holding them stuck. I have a Facebook group that women can come and get more information if they want more information. I have an email if they want to contact me. Wow, I got through all of that in the hour. Yeah, as you know, I do have more slides that I sort of pushed away. 70% of attendees at personal development programs, courses are female. 70%, because women are always searching, they're always going back again and again and again. Men can go once, they can get the information, their logical brain accesses it, processes it, off they go, they're happy. But for us, and with all that inherited stuff, we feel like there's something wrong with us, so we keep searching and keep searching and keep searching. Yeah, so we're spending money and time and getting little results for it. Okay, an hour. How was that? Did anyone get anything from that? Some aha moments?
That was pretty spot on time-wise, Maria.
It was.
One on the knocker.
I could talk all day about all of those different, but I just thought, I've got to rush through. I hope it wasn't too rushed that you didn't understand what I was talking about.
Yeah, no, I think it was, for me, it was at a pretty good pace. And I've got that image that you have, explaining the epigenetics. That's really quite interesting. And I've had, myself, I don't even know what the therapy was called, but was trying to trigger, find out what was triggering me. And it was just an emotional thing that was done. And it went right back to when Mum was pregnant with me. So it's the first time I've ever had anything. And she actually had she lost her husband. So my dad died. And so that trauma, you don't realise, because I always say, it affects mum, it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
But obviously it does, because I physically responded.
You were connected to her when that trauma happened.
Yeah. And extremely traumatic, you know, still even, you know, over, years
well, you
later.
Think of that. And all those women who lost fathers, sons, brothers, grandfather in the war, and, you know, and, you know, it's part of life that people come and go and that as well. So there's always stuff happening. And when we connect emotion to it, it is stored in our DNA. And that's just the way that we work. If someone said to you, oh, I met you back, you know, blah, blah, you know, last month, and you, oh, I can't remember it. It was because you didn't actually attach any emotion. You won't remember them if you have a love, or you have a hate, you have some kind of emotion. They made you laugh. I remember you. Yeah. But if you don't attach emotion, then you don't store it. So when people say that you're fat or you're not good enough or whatever it is, you know, little boys saying mean things, it all gets stored. We're carrying all of that and we don't get rid of it until we do something like Creatrix that clears it out at that bloodline level. And it doesn't just go back 1-2 generations. It's, if you could think of, you know, all of these emotions as weeds, okay, they're growing up through the grass. Most things are going along with like a lawnmower and they're just cutting a piece off the top, keeping them down, you know, from really, you know, blowing up, I suppose. But they're cutting the top off. Then sometimes some of those processes, they go and they try and pull it out of the root, but they've just snapped it off at the ground. You know, so they've taken a little bit more, but there's still a root, so it's still going to grow back. It is still going to come back at some point and affect the way that you live your life. What Creatrix does is it pulls it out at the root. It is no longer an issue for you now. So with beliefs, say like with a lot of women have, I'm not good enough. When you get the internal learnings, your soul wisdom, your learnings, because as well as all the negative stuff that we've inherited a ton of wisdom. So when we can go in and access all of that deep soul wisdom, we gain an understanding, we gain a different perspective, we change the beliefs, we change the values, we change everything. That belief can no longer ever come back. You know within here that I am good enough. Emotions are a bit different because we are meant to feel emotion. So if you've got, say, grief at a 10 out of 10, okay, you can go and you can get the learnings, the realizations, the epiphanies, and you now feel grief at a 0. But it can go shoot to a 10 if someone in the future were to die and you were to feel it. But with all of that new wisdom, after a certain time, it will go back down. It is not something that is going to stop you or put you on your back or stop you living your life, because you have an internal wisdom that is going to support you and help you get through that. Whereas now we have 100, 1,000 events of grief and trauma in the past. You know, if you think in my lifetime, I've had a couple of uncles, I've had a best friend, I had my grandfathers, my grandmothers, you know, there's been a lot of death in my lifetime. And you add that to all the generations before you, there's, you know, 1,000 layers. So if you clear that out and you're starting at layer number 1, you can deal with the next events as they come. But you can be triggered to feel. It's the same with anger. Women can, and this was me, when I was so sad and grief-stricken, it was coming out as anger. I was yelling at everybody. I was working as a manager of a motel and someone would come in to check in and I would yell at them. I couldn't even control myself and I would see what I was doing, but I still couldn't control it. When I cleared that out, if someone were to run into me with their car, I would snap and feel angry. But give me 30, 60 minutes, and that's back down to a 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not sitting at a 10, and I'm not reliving it and what do you call it when you're chewing on it for days and days and days, and it stays in your body and it affects every area of you. Okay, so you have a new way of dealing with it, and it doesn't stay at that 10 out of 10 day in, day out, day in, day out. but it's there to fluctuate. But it's, you know, we are meant to feel emotion. It is something that guides us, it keeps us safe. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Nikki, have you got any questions or comments for Maria?
I thought that was a brilliant presentation. Thank you, Maria.
Oh, thank you. You never really know whether it's going to land, whether people will understand, whether I'm talking too fast or making any sense.
No, a lot of it landed with me. Things you were saying, examples you were giving, a lot of it landed.
Yeah.
One thing that's playing through my brain now, though, is with the image of grandmother carrying our mother, and we're already an egg in there. I get that with the female that's passing on. How does that then come? Like, obviously, I had a dad.
You definitely inherited some of the male stuff, but men don't inherit it as much because they still do inherit some. Absolutely, they don't hold as much, and it's not because it's not passed down the same way within the uterus. That subconscious knows that you're a female to grow the human, so it therefore transfers all of what it knows into all the cells that split from those two cells.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you have a baby, you have an egg and a sperm. They think that that's what creates a life, and it is. But that embryo sits in a mum for 9 months. Okay. And that woman is passing on that knowledge. Men absolutely, definitely have epigenetic inherited stuff. They do. And, you know, from wars, and there's stories of men who feel and have had certain things triggered. I read one where an uncle was drowned at a certain age, and then 3 generations later, this, so it would have been a nephew, the father would have felt the emotion of that event, and he's passed it down, or the brother of the uncle that died. And this person was now waking up at 3 a.m, sweating and dreaming that he was drowning, you know, 3 generations later. And he was going to psychologists and so many others, until there was one who was up on this epigenetics and said, could it be, go back and look at your history. Was there something that happened in your past? And he worked out that, yes, it was 3 generations ago. So, and knowing is power. Knowing how your brain works, knowing what is wrong with you, knowing that you're not crazy can make you feel better in an instant.
Yeah.
So many women just think they're crazy because we don't talk about all the stuff that's running around in their head.
That was another thing I related to when you said that you had that picture of the brain, and we're at work, but we're thinking about what's for dinner. I have to go to the shop, and I need to send that parcel. It's someone's birthday in a month. You know, like, you've got all of this running around.
Yeah. It's
like, can we box our mess?
We can't box our mess. No. We can release a lot of the stuff of past stuff. We're still going to have, our brain is just wired to be connecting. The men brain is different. And so when we feel the way that we do, or when we see the world the way that we do, we think everybody else sees it the same way. We think everybody else is, thinking, if I think that this is how life is, if I can see that the boss has got the shits, everybody else can. Men don't, if I am thinking about the kids and thinking about home and thinking about the dinner, my husband should be thinking about it too. They don't. And we have expectations because of what we think, and it's our expectations a lot of the time that drive us crazy, because they don't meet them, but they don't know them. And this kind of information can create better relationships, because when they understand us, that we have all these hormones and our mind never stops and we go crazy. And when we say, what are you thinking about? And they say nothing and we get the shits, you know, it's because that's how our brain works. You know, when we understand each other, we can change our expectations. We can change the way that we talk to them and deal with them and what we want them to do. We can change the way that we internalize everything once we know that that's what we're doing.
So it's really a matter of working with yourself.
Absolutely. And there are not many, and I certainly didn't learn it until I joined the Institute of Women, anything about how my female mind works. And if you work with your flow instead of against it, you're not causing yourself so much struggle. You're not causing yourself so much pain.
That's cool.
You're not causing yourself to be releasing all this stress hormone that's making us sick.
That's a really cool idea.
I'm glad you got something out of it. I hope more women see it and get to know it. It's something that the Institute of Women, they're sending this information, and they certainly talk about it a lot better than I do, I can tell you, and go in depth with all of those different parts of the brain, all of those different areas. And there are so many different ones. I only touched on 2 of the brain, and then a couple of the hormones and a couple. So, but there is a lot, and it makes sense, and it makes us feel better. We don't feel like we're going crazy, or that and we can start flowing. We can get back to being. Right now, women do. We feel like we have to be constantly doing so that we can then have success or love or whatever it is, and then we can be. Then we can be happy. Once we do and we have, then we can be happy. But the training and all that we do as transformologists is to help women be themselves, be female, be happy, be content, be connected to that spiritual wellness, to their source. Then they can have, and then they can do easily in flow. So it's completely different, flipped it on its head.
So I didn't get the address if we wanted to talk to you for the half hour.
Yes, I will.
Maria, remember too, so you can message as well. But that's
absolutely. I'll put them in the chat so that you can just grab them from there. Oh.
That's a great idea. And I was interested in your comment too about that gaining a peripheral view or increasing your peripheral view, how that reduces stress. And I was curious about that, Maria.
Well, when you're focused, when you're in here and you're focused, you're all in your head, which is causing stress. Mm-hmm. And the further that you go out, it literally makes it hard for your brain to stress. And there's a tool, it is a Band-Aid, it's an in-the-moment tool, mm-hmm. but you can sort of, bring your fingers out, like you do this with outstretched arms.
Yeah.
Which you probably can't see.
So you do it in a physical.
Yeah, you pick a point directly ahead and you focus on that, and you bring yourself out to peripheral. And if you're just waving your hands up and down and breathing in and out, that stress dissipates.
Okay.
It's a simple in-the-moment tool. It's not a solution, but it's an in-the-moment tool. And the more that a woman moves into peripheral, the less stress, like you won't be constantly in that stress.
Yeah. I think, I mean, only my husband and I were talking about that, because when you're driving home, Brian says, "Oh, did you spot that?" And it was something in the paddock or something, of a neighbour. So go, "No, I was looking at where I was going."
Yes, exactly.
And thinking about everything else. So you got it. Yeah, really. That's exactly.
It's their natural state, because they are the hunter, they are the provider. It's part of what they were meant to do. They need to see the animals, 1, to provide food, but 2, to keep the rest of the tribe safe. So it's always been a part of who they are. And understanding how we work is amazing. It makes everything so much better. Yeah. Any other areas that you...
Just following what Viv said then, it is about the rock carting as well. So we have our inherited rocks. But this morning on the bus, I said, oh, I wonder what that excavator's doing over there. And the kids said, that's been there for weeks. So they are looking peripherally still. I've come in with all the rocks that I've picked up in my lifetime, whereas, so yeah, we're born with some rocks. We do pick up a lot that bring us in, don't they?
Yeah. And we also, our subconscious, it's like a TV screen, all right? It can bring in like, 20 million bits or something. That's not right, but it's a lot, all right? It's like all the tiny little pixels that can be on a TV screen, okay? Our mind brings in millions, but it can only process and bring into our awareness 127 bits. So that's not many. So for us, if, say, I'm watching the TV, so no, I'm on my computer, the TV is going in the background, I can be on here and I don't hear a word of what's going on until my mind hears the word Oberon. I didn't hear it, my subconscious heard it. The subconscious knows that is something that I live in, I know, it's in my awareness, so it brings that to my attention. Okay, so if you are looking for a new car and you haven't, cars on the road, they've just been going backwards and forwards, you start looking and you've had a test drive with a Subaru and you've had a test drive with a Toyota in a particular one, you go back to drive home and you will see every single car. Oh, well, that one's the one that I just test drove. That's the one that I test drove. That's the one that I test drove. You'll see hundreds of them because your subconscious now brings them into your awareness. It works for you, but at times it can sort of work against you too by, trying to keep us safe. That's its job, but it brings into awareness what we currently are focused on. And if we're focused on negative, that's what it brings us. Everyone's always unhappy. You're only going to notice people who are unhappy. You don't notice the happy ones because you're telling yourself that everyone's unhappy. So that's what your subconscious brings you. It brings into your awareness everyone who's unhappy. I'm always broke. Well, it's going to keep you broke. It's not going to bring in money and wealth, and because you're not focused on that. So it's a very complicated piece of machinery. And we need a manual, which we don't have.
Yeah, no, we're certainly complex beings, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I think it helps for women to read the manual, to understand some of the bits. This was a very small section of what there is. But hopefully that you can go home and you can bring different things into your awareness. You'll start seeing things that resonate. Like when I started doing this, I started finding, stuff. It's like Facebook. If you search one thing, then every ad on Facebook will be about that one thing. Your subconscious mind is the same. What it knows you want to look at, it will bring in. You look at an ad or one paper on epigenetics. There'll be epigenetics everywhere. You start reading a book on such and such, then you'll see it everywhere. It's brought into your awareness. So that's where now, out of those 2 million bits, that 127 that you actually see is what you're focused on. Yeah.
So yes, so we can focus on the positives and
absolutely. And we do, and just one more thing that we take in like watching the news, it's negative. You know, I don't watch the news. Every so often I'll ask somebody, you know, are we still in lockdown? But it's the same with, if we read a book. I had a friend who read a book about, you know, this woman, this girl in America, she was kidnapped, she was locked in a basement, they kept her there, you know, that story where they live there forever and they're rescued 20 years later. Well, she read the in-depth every single day of this woman in captivity. And I got together with her for dinner. She said, oh my God, my mind, I just can't stop worrying about my daughters. I said, stop reading the book. Because you feel everything that person felt. You're bringing that into your body, into your mind, into your soul. You can't help but feel what she felt and think that that's happening to you. That's how our mind works. So if you read real life, true, I don't watch any of those things on TV about, you know, that someone's killed and they go and work out who, because you're taking in, you're feeling all of that emotion. It's like it's happening to you. Your body reacts when your mind is processing. It's like it's happening to you. When you're in a movie, you're watching that movie and you're feeling everything that they're feeling, you know. So it's knowing also that you're bringing in whatever it is that you're focused on. If you don't want to feel fear that your daughter's going to get kidnapped, don't read a book on people who got kidnapped, because that fear is going to be inside of you and it's going to be driving you crazy and changing the way that you bring up your girls, because that fear is now a part of you. Does that make sense? We bring stuff in and we cause ourselves pain by doing things that we don't even realise that's what it's doing.
And that's a cool reason to know this and to learn this, because we can then work with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because we're a cool creature too, like those emotions and things are beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. We can see all the colours of the rainbows. We feel all the colours of the rainbows. But if we know that, then we don't beat ourselves up for it too.
Yeah. Yeah. My takeaway from today is a journal. So now I'm going to go back and read my language.
Yeah. And well, if you email me through those links, did you copy those links?
They didn't come into the chat.
No.
Oh, because we're probably...
you might have done it private.
Yes, because I was talking to Corey.
Yeah. So just you can copy and paste it again.
Let's go, everybody. There we are. So copy those before, and if you email me, I can send you the PDF that I've got where the look at these negative words, change them to these positive ones. I've got a PDF on that. So
yeah, fantastic. So maybe we could put that in with the recording.
Oh, if you want to.
Yeah, and then that way the people who are watching the recording can get access to it as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So we'll put that in there because that'll be, yeah. So is that open, the free session, is that only for people that are live or?
Well, I have some spots so they can reach out.
And just see when you come and work.
Yeah. I hope that women, you know, take opportunity to learn something new about themselves. I think that we can only benefit from knowing more, and it's going to help every area of our life in the way that we speak to our partner or our kids or the people at work. You know, nobody else is processing information exactly the same way we are, because they don't have all the exact same emotions and beliefs and traumas and everything. It all ends up to how we process. It goes in, it goes through all of our filters, and then it comes out. So nobody is seeing the world or feeling it or experiencing it exactly the same as we are.
Fantastic. All right, fantastic. Maria, that's really brilliant. It's opening up. It's always good to become more self-aware and to understand more of what's out there and the services that you offer as well, which is really, it's really fantastic. And for anyone watching the recording too, know that you're a member, you can message, communicate in there as well. So Right. So Nicola's worked out her number one action. So anyone watching the recording too, think about that, what their takeaway is. And when you plan to do that, sometimes to set yourself something that's specific and what are light bulb moments. So I've written a few little notes down, and I suppose I've questioned too, had that chance. It's been great to be able to ask you in person, Maria. And so truly being, what are you grateful for from this session as well, to really reflect on that as well. So thank you for your presence today. We're at the end of our virtual time together, and it's time for us to re-enter into our day for the rest of the day. And it's a Friday, so it's an extra special day, isn't it?
Yes.
In our calendar. So next Tuesday will be the whole coaching session. And it's going to be really interesting having everyone together. Maria, I haven't done it either. Nicola hasn't done it. So it's going to be a new experience. I think with the Rural Woman, we're always looking at improving and seeing and reflecting. So it's never this one thing, but we try. So it's always exploring something new and how we can make it better. So
Awesome.
That'll be really interesting to see that and to connect in and break out. And we're going to be into breakout rooms and connect with
okay.
we need to do. So certainly I haven't experienced it. So it'll be something that we'll explore together and gain feedback from. Okay, so I'd like to acknowledge how respectful and caring and supporting you've all been of each other today. And may you go into the rest of your day with a heart full of love, a mind full of ideas and next steps, and a powerful intention and the knowledge that you are blooming where you are planted. So thank you very much.
Thanks for joining. See you later.
See you. Thank